Hurry up and die already, Dad. 7 words. That's all it took to change everything. My 19-year-old daughter Rebecca said this to me across our oak dining table on September 22nd, 2024. The same table where I'd helped her with homework for 12 years. The same table where we'd celebrated every birthday, every achievement, every milestone since I adopted her from the foster system when she was 7. I was in the middle of cutting my roast beef when those words hit me. Stage 3 pancreatic cancer had already stolen my appetite most days, but hearing that, it was like she'd reached across the table and slapped me. But here's the thing about quiet power. It doesn't explode. It doesn't yell. It doesn't beg. I set down my fork, looked at her calm as still water, smiled, picked up my car keys from the counter, and walked out. She had no idea what she'd just cost herself. The worst part wasn't the money I was spending to stay alive. It was watching my own daughter calculate how much faster she'd get rich if I just gave up. Let me back up 6 months. March 15th, 2024. Vanderbilt Medical Center, room 4B, doctor. Patterson delivered the news with all the bedside manner of a parking ticket. Stage 3 pancreatic cancer, Mr. Morrison. 6 months, maybe 8 with aggressive treatment. Rebecca's first question wasn't, "How are you feeling, Dad?" or "What can I do to help?" It was, "Does your life insurance policy cover terminal illness?" I should have seen the red flags then. But when you love someone for 12 years, you make excuses. You tell yourself they're just scared. Processing grief differently, being practical. By April, the medical bills started piling up like autumn leaves. Gemcitabine treatments, $8,400 a month. Insurance covered most of it, but my copay was still $2,100 every 30 days. The manila folder on my kitchen counter grew 3 inches thick with hospital statements, pharmacy receipts, specialist consultations. Rebecca would flip through them like she was reading a magazine. "Dad, this is getting expensive," she'd say, highlighting the totals with a yellow marker. "Maybe we should look into alternatives." Alternatives. Like I was a broken appliance she wanted to trade in. Nashville Construction Company had been my life's work. 23 employees depending on me. $2.3 million in assets, according to the Ernst & Young appraisal sitting in my file cabinet. But the treatments were killing my energy faster than the cancer was killing my body. I had to step back from day-to-day operations in May. That's when Rebecca really started paying attention. She'd bring me coffee in the morning, something she'd never done before, and casually ask about succession planning. "Have you updated your will recently, Dad? Just in case?" Her boyfriend Jake started hanging around more often. They'd sit at my kitchen table with laptops open, whispering about business valuations and estate tax implications. Like I couldn't hear them from the living room, I found printouts in her bedroom trash can, articles about probate law, inheritance timelines, how long it takes to liquidate construction assets. The real wake-up call came during our family therapy session with Dr. Sarah Williams. Rebecca had insisted we go. For closure, she said, to process our feelings. $200 an hour to watch my daughter complain about my medical expenses. This is financially devastating our family, Rebecca told Dr. Williams, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Dad's treatments are draining resources that were supposed to secure my future. Her future. Not our family's future. Not my comfort in my final months. Her future. I've already given up my college plans, she continued, which was news to me since her $180,000 college fund sat untouched in a separate account. I can't even think about my career with all this uncertainty. Dr. Williams turned to me. David, how does it feel to hear Rebecca's concerns? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. The expensive highlights in her hair, $300 every 6 weeks at that salon downtown. The designer purse I'd bought her for graduation, Kate Spade, $450. The 2023 Honda Accord in our driveway, with $35,000 still showing on the window sticker. This girl who'd never worked a day in her life, who'd never paid a bill, never worried about rent, never gone without anything she wanted. I feel like I'm being treated like a burden instead of a father, I said quietly. Rebecca rolled her eyes in front of the therapist. That's not fair, Dad. I'm just being realistic about our situation. Our situation. Like my cancer was a joint financial problem we were solving together. The session ended with Dr. William's scheduling us for next week. Rebecca was already on her phone in the parking lot, texting someone about making progress with the therapy angle. That night, I sat in my home office looking at 12 years of receipts. The adoption had cost me $52,000 in legal fees and court costs back in 2012. Brentwood Academy, $45,000 a year for private school tuition. 12 years of that. You do the math. Her childhood asthma treatments, $89,000 in specialist visits and medications. The car, the clothes, the vacations to Disney World, Myrtle Beach, Colorado ski trips. I added it up 3 times to make sure I wasn't making an error. Over $900,000, nearly $1 million, invested in raising this girl who was now highlighting my medical bills and researching inheritance law. But that wasn't even the worst thing she said. The worst thing she said happened 3 days later, back in Dr. Williams's office. I'd been thinking about our last session all weekend. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe Rebecca really was just scared and processing her grief in her own way. Cancer makes everything harder, including family relationships. So I went into that Tuesday appointment ready to listen, ready to understand her perspective. Dr. Williams started with her usual check-in. How has everyone been feeling since our last session? Rebecca launched right in. I've been doing a lot of research about our situation. Our situation? There was that phrase again. I found some really helpful resources about families dealing with terminal illness, she continued, pulling out a folder. There are support groups for people in my position, children who have to watch their parents. You know. She let the sentence hang there like a noose. Go on, doctor, Williams encouraged. Rebecca took a deep breath. The thing is, doctor. Williams, I think my dad is being selfish. The room went dead quiet. Even the air conditioning seemed to stop humming. How so? Dr. Williams asked carefully. He's choosing expensive treatments that aren't even going to save him. The doctors told us 6 months, maybe 8. But he's spending thousands of dollars every month on treatments that are just prolonging everyone's suffering. Everyone's suffering. Not his pain, not his fight for life. Everyone's suffering. I sat there listening to my daughter, the girl I'd rescued from a broken foster system, who I'd read bedtime stories to for 5 years, who I'd walked to school every morning until she was old enough to drive, explained to a professional therapist why I should hurry up and die. Rebecca, Dr. Williams said slowly, can you help me understand what you mean by everyone's suffering? Well, it's hard on me emotionally watching him go through this. And financially, it's devastating. Dad's always been the provider, but now he can't work, and these medical bills are eating up everything we've saved. Everything we've saved? Like she'd contributed a single dollar to the family finances. And honestly, Rebecca continued, I think he's being cruel to himself too. The treatments make him sick. He's lost 40 pounds. He can barely eat. He's just existing, not living. She leaned forward in her chair, really warming up to her topic now. I've been researching quality of life studies for pancreatic cancer patients. The 5-year survival rate is less than 5%. Dad's spending a fortune to buy himself a few extra months of misery. Dr. Williams looked at me. David, how are you feeling about what Rebecca is sharing? I opened my mouth to answer, but Rebecca wasn't finished. The thing that really bothers me, she said, is that Dad always taught me to be responsible with money, to think about the future, to plan ahead. But now he's making emotional decisions that are going to impact my entire life. Your entire life, I thought. Not our family's life, your life. I mean, I get that he's scared, she continued, but at some point you have to accept reality and think about the people you're leaving behind. The people you're leaving behind. Translation, me and my inheritance. Dr. Williams tried to redirect. Rebecca, it sounds like you're carrying a lot of financial anxiety. Can we talk about... It's not just anxiety, Rebecca interrupted. It's math. Dad's treatments cost more than most people make in a year. And for what? To stretch 6 months into 8? Meanwhile, I'm supposed to put my whole future on hold. That's when she really went for the throat. You know what the hardest part is, Doctor? Williams, I can't even grieve properly because Dad won't let go. He's making this so much harder than it needs to be. If he really loved our family, he'd think about what's best for everyone, not just himself. If he really loved our family. I felt something break inside my chest. Not my heart, that had been breaking slowly for months. This was something deeper, something that had been holding me together since March. "Rebecca," I said quietly, "do you want me to stop treatment?" She looked me straight in the eye. No hesitation, no pause to consider what she was about to say. "Yes, Dad." "I think you should. I think you're being selfish, and I think you're prolonging everyone's suffering. And I think if you really love me, you'd stop fighting a battle you can't win." Dr. Williams started to say something, but I held up my hand. "And then what happens?" I asked. Rebecca blinked. "What do you mean?" "After I stop treatment, after I die, what happens then?" For the first time in the conversation, she looked uncomfortable. "Well, we'd grieve, obviously, and then we'd have to figure out how to move forward. Financially, yes, I mean, that would be part of it. You've thought about this a lot." "I've had to, Dad. You've given me no choice." I nodded slowly, reached for my jacket. "Where are you going?" Dr. Williams asked. "Home," I said. "I need to make some phone calls." Rebecca looked relieved. "Are you going to think about what I said?" I smiled at her, the same smile I'd given her 12 years ago when she'd asked if I was really going to be her dad forever. "Oh, I'm definitely going to think about it." I made a phone call that would change everything. That night, I sat in my home office until 3 a.m., staring at a single piece of paper. My will. Last updated January 2023, back when I thought I had decades left to watch Rebecca grow into the woman I'd hoped she'd become. The main provision was simple. Upon my death, Rebecca Morrison would inherit the entirety of my estate. Nashville Construction Company, the house, my savings, life insurance policies, everything. Estimated value, $2.3 million. Tyler, my 16-year-old son from my first marriage, would receive $200,000 for his education. A nice gesture, but Rebecca got the lion's share because she was the one I'd raised day to day, the one I'd adopted, the one I'd thought needed me most. I kept hearing her voice from the therapy session. If he really loved me, he'd stop fighting a battle he can't win. 12 years of memories flickered through my mind like an old movie projector. Rebecca, at 7 years old, clutching my hand at the courthouse when the adoption was finalized. "Are you really going to be my dad forever?" she'd whispered. "Forever and always," I'd promised. Rebecca at 9, crying because kids at school made fun of her secondhand clothes. I'd taken her shopping that weekend, spent $800 I didn't really have to make sure she fit in. Rebecca at 12, begging for private school because her friends all went to Brentwood Academy, $45,000 a year. I'd taken out a loan. Rebecca at 16, wanting a car for her birthday. Not just any car, a Honda Accord because it was safe and reliable. $35,000. I dipped into my retirement fund. Every year, every milestone, every want or need, I'd said yes. Not because I had unlimited money, but because I loved her. Because I wanted to give her everything I'd never had growing up. And now, facing the end of my life, she wanted me to hurry up and die so she could cash in. But here's what Rebecca didn't understand about quiet power. It's not about the explosion. It's about the precision. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for. Robert Kleinman, estate attorney. I'd used Bob 5 years ago when I'd first drawn up the will. Good lawyer, discreet, available for emergency consultations if the price was right. It was 3:17 a.m., but I sent him a text anyway. "Need to see you tomorrow about changing my will. Urgent. Cancer situation. Will pay emergency rates." His response came back in 10 minutes. Office at 9 a.m. Bringing current documents and ID. $450 per hour. I set my phone down and looked at that will one more time. Rebecca Morrison, $2.3 million. The girl who'd just told a therapist that I was being selfish for wanting to live. I thought about my brother Jake, who'd called me twice in the past week asking if I was being too hard on Rebecca. Family pressure was building. Everyone thought I should forgive and forget. Move on. Focus on the time we had left. But forgiveness and consequences aren't mutually exclusive. You can love someone and still teach them that actions have costs. I thought about Tyler, my son who lived with his mother in Memphis. He'd driven down 3 times since my diagnosis. Never once asked about money or inheritance. Just wanted to spend time with his dad. brought me books to read during chemo, made me playlists of music we both liked. Rebecca had visited the oncology center exactly twice. Both times, she'd spent the appointment on her phone, texting friends about weekend plans. The decision crystallized like sugar in cold water, sharp, clear, irreversible. At 4:30 a.m., I wrote Rebecca a note and left it on the kitchen counter. Gone to run errands. Doctor's appointment at 2 p.m. if you want to come. Dad, I didn't expect her to come. She hadn't attended a medical appointment with me since April, but I wanted to give her one last chance to show up, to act like a daughter instead of a vulture circling a dying man. If she surprised me, if she showed up and held my hand during the bad news about my latest scan results, maybe I'd reconsider. If she didn't, well, some lessons cost exactly what they're worth. Robert Kleinman's office sat on the 23rd floor of a downtown Nashville high-rise. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the Cumberland River, and his mahogany desk was bigger than most people's dining rooms. At 9 a.m. sharp, I was sitting across from him with my current will, medical records, and a very specific request. David, Bob said, scanning my documents, I have to ask, are you sure about this? It's unusual. Bob had been practicing estate law for 30 years. He'd seen bitter divorces, family feuds, and inheritance disputes that tore families apart for generations. But even he seemed surprised by what I was proposing. I'm dying, Bob. Stage 3 pancreatic cancer. 6 months, maybe 8. I want to change my will. I understand that part, he said carefully. What I don't understand is why you want to leave your daughter exactly $1. $1. The minimum amount required by Tennessee law to prove that I hadn't simply forgotten to include her in the will. $1 to show that this was intentional. She told me yesterday that I should stop my cancer treatments because I'm being selfish and prolonging everyone's suffering, I said. She thinks I should hurry up and die so she can inherit my money. Bob set down his reading glasses. She said that? In front of a therapist. With witnesses. Jesus. I pulled out my phone and played him the voice memo I'd recorded in Doctor. Williams's parking lot immediately after the session. Rebecca's voice, clear as a bell. If he really loved me, he'd stop fighting a battle he can't win. Bob listened to the whole thing twice. Where do you want the money to go instead? He asked. Saint. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Everything except Tyler's education fund and the $1 for Rebecca. That's roughly $2.3 million you're talking about donating. $2,299,999 to be precise. Bob started taking notes. Any particular reason you chose Saint? Jude? I thought about that question. Because they're fighting for children who actually want to live, who don't spend their time calculating how much money their suffering is worth. For the next 2 hours, we went through every detail. Bank accounts, business assets, life insurance policies, the house, my truck, even my tools from the construction company. We'll need to establish your mental competency, Bob explained. Given your medical condition, if anyone contests this will, they'll likely claim you weren't of sound mind when you made these changes. How do we prove I am? Independent psychological evaluation. Dr. Martinez downtown does these assessments. She'll test your cognitive function, decision-making capacity, understanding of consequences. Costs about $800, but it's ironclad protection. I scheduled the appointment for Friday. There's also a 30-day waiting period required by Tennessee law, Bob continued. Any major will changes involving terminal illness need a cooling-off period. Prevents deathbed decisions made under emotional duress. 30 days. That meant my will changes wouldn't be legally final until October 25th. What if I die before then? Then the old will stands. Rebecca gets everything. I looked at my medical folder. Dr. Patterson had given me 6 months from March 15th. That put my timeline somewhere around mid-September, but cancer doesn't follow schedules. I need this done right, Bob. I need it to be bulletproof. It will be. But David, he leaned forward. Are you absolutely sure about this? Once we file these documents, once you sign everything, there's no going back. Family relationships that get destroyed over money don't usually heal. I thought about Rebecca highlighting my medical bills, about her researching inheritance timelines while I was getting chemotherapy, about her telling a therapist that I was being cruel to everyone by wanting to live. Bob, some relationships are already destroyed. I'm just making it official. He nodded and started drafting. The new will was elegant in its simplicity. Tyler Morrison, $200,000 education fund, plus an additional $50,000 for good measure. The kid deserves something extra for actually behaving like family. Rebecca Morrison, $1, with a note explaining that this bequest reflects the value she has placed on our relationship. Remainder of estate, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, designated specifically for pancreatic cancer research in children. The hospital will probably want to name something after you, Bob said. Research Wing, Scholarship Fund, something like that. Make it anonymous. Call it the Anonymous Father Fund or something. This isn't about my legacy. It's about teaching a lesson. Bob finished the initial draft by noon. The psychological evaluation was scheduled for Friday morning. If I passed, and Bob was confident I would, we'd have the final documents ready for signing by next Tuesday. One more thing, I said as I was leaving. Rebecca doesn't know about any of this, and I want to keep it that way until after I'm gone. Attorney-client privilege, Bob assured me. But can I ask why you're not telling her? I thought about Rebecca's phone call to her boyfriend right after our therapy session. How she'd been making progress with the therapy angle. How she'd probably start being extra nice to me now, thinking she'd successfully guilt-tripped me into giving up. Because I want to see how she acts when she thinks she's won. But that was just the beginning. Rebecca didn't come to my doctor's appointment. I sat in that oncology waiting room for 20 minutes, past my scheduled time, watching the door, giving her every chance to walk through it and prove me wrong. She didn't. Dr. Patterson delivered the news I'd been expecting. The latest scans showed progression. The tumors were growing despite treatment. We were looking at weeks now, not months. I drove home to find Rebecca in the kitchen, making herself a sandwich. "How'd the appointment go?" she asked without looking up from her turkey and Swiss. "Not great. Cancer's spreading faster than expected." She paused for exactly half a second. "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." Then she went right back to making her sandwich. That night, my phone started ringing. "David, it's Jake." My brother sounded uncomfortable. "Rebecca called me today." "Of course she did. She's worried about you, man. Says you've been acting strange since that therapy session. Cold, distant. Did she tell you what she said in therapy?" Silence. "She mentioned there was some kind of misunderstanding." Misunderstanding. That's what she was calling it. "Jake, she told me I should stop cancer treatment because I'm being selfish. She said if I really loved her, I'd hurry up and die." More silence. "Come on, David. She's 19 years old. She's scared. People say stupid things when they're grieving. She's not grieving, Jake." She's calculating. "Look, I know this is hard, but she's family. She's going to be the one dealing with everything after you're gone. Maybe cut her some slack?" The next call came from my sister Janet, then my cousin Mike, then Rebecca's grandmother on her adoptive mother's side. One by one, Rebecca had reached out to every family member she could think of. Her story was consistent. Dad was being unreasonable. She'd tried to have an honest conversation about practical matters, and now he was punishing her for being realistic. "She's just trying to protect herself emotionally," Janet explained. "You can't blame a kid for wanting some certainty about her future." By Thursday, Rebecca had assembled quite the intervention team. She cornered me after dinner with her laptop open. "Dad, I've been thinking about our conversation in therapy, and I realize I didn't express myself very well." Here it comes, I thought. I wasn't trying to say you should give up. I was trying to say that maybe we should focus on quality time instead of just medical stuff. She'd rehearsed this, probably practiced it in the mirror. "I found this article," she continued, turning her laptop toward me. "It's about cancer patients who chose to stop aggressive treatment and focus on comfort care instead. They actually lived longer and had better relationships with their families." The article was from some blog called Mindful Death Transitions. Real medical expertise there. And I thought maybe we could take a trip together. Somewhere nice. Use some of that medical money for making memories instead. Somewhere nice, with money that was supposed to be keeping me alive. That's a sweet thought, Rebecca. I already looked at some resorts in Florida. Beachfront properties. We could spend your last few months somewhere beautiful instead of in doctor's offices. Your last few months. She'd moved from, if you really loved me, you'd die faster, to, let's make your dying more convenient for both of us. I'll think about it, I said. She smiled and hugged me. First time she'd initiated physical contact in months. I love you, Dad. I just want what's best for both of us. Both of us. Always both of us. She had no idea what was coming. By Friday morning, Rebecca had launched a full-scale social media campaign. Her Instagram story opened with a photo of us from last Christmas. Me in my red sweater, her with her arm around my shoulder, both of us smiling. The caption read, "Praying for my dad's healing journey." Cancer is so hard on families. Hashtag faith over fear. Daddy's girl. Hashtag cancer warrior. 43 likes in the first hour. Her Facebook post was longer, more detailed. Hey everyone, as most of you know, my dad has been fighting pancreatic cancer since March. It's been incredibly difficult watching the strongest man I know go through this battle. The treatments are taking such a toll on his body, and honestly, on our whole family. I'm asking for prayers, positive vibes, whatever you can send our way. We're focusing on making every moment count and choosing love over fear. Thank you for all your support during this impossible time. Hashtag cancer sucks. Family first. Hashtag grateful. 87 comments of support. Lots of heart emojis. Several offers to bring casseroles. Meanwhile, I was sitting in Dr. Martinez's office taking a psychological competency evaluation. Mr. Morrison, I'm going to ask you some questions about your decision-making process regarding your estate planning. There are no right or wrong answers. I just need to understand your reasoning. For 90 minutes, Doctor. Martinez tested my memory, cognitive function, and understanding of consequences. She asked me to explain my will changes in detail, describe my relationship with Rebecca, and walk through the events that led to my decision. Do you understand that your daughter will likely be upset by these changes? Yes. Do you understand that this decision might damage your relationship with other family members? Yes. Do you believe your daughter deserves some portion of your estate based on your 12-year relationship? I thought about that question carefully. I believe she deserves exactly what she's earned through her actions. No more, no less. Dr. Martinez made notes and moved on. While I was proving my sanity, Rebecca was expanding her publicity campaign. She'd joined our church's prayer chain, something she'd never shown interest in before. Pastor Williams called me Friday afternoon. David, I heard about Rebecca's request for prayer support. I want you to know the whole congregation is lifting you up. That's kind of you, Pastor. Rebecca seems to be handling everything with such grace. She spoke to several of our older members about the importance of family during difficult times. Really mature perspective for someone her age. Grace, maturity, right? She mentioned that you two had some tension about treatment decisions. I hope you don't mind me saying, but sometimes the hardest part of loving someone is letting them love you back in their own way. Rebecca had gotten to him too. The family group chat was buzzing with activity. 29 relatives sharing Rebecca's posts, commenting about what a devoted daughter she was, how proud they were of her strength during such a difficult time. Cousin Sarah, Rebecca is handling this so much better than I would. Such a sweet girl. Uncle Tom, always knew that kid was special. David raised her right. Aunt Linda, praying for both of them. Rebecca's such a blessing to have during a time like this. Rebecca had positioned herself as the devoted daughter, caring for her dying father. And I was... what? The stubborn cancer patient making everything harder than it needed to be. Saturday morning, she started volunteering at the hospital. Not the oncology ward where I received treatment. That would have required actually spending time with sick people. No, she signed up for the gift shop. 2 hours every Saturday morning, smiling behind the cash register, selling get-well balloons and teddy bears. She made sure to post photos, her in her volunteer badge, surrounded by flowers and stuffed animals. Caption, giving back during Dad's treatment. This experience has taught me so much about gratitude and service. Hashtag volunteer, hashtag hospital, blessed. The comments poured in. You're an angel. Your dad must be so proud. Such a caring heart. By Sunday, the whole family was talking about Rebecca's transformation, how cancer had brought out her best qualities, how she was really stepping up during a crisis. My brother Jake called again. Man, I don't know what you were worried about. Rebecca's been incredible this week. Really shows her character. Character. That was one word for it. The whole family was about to pick sides. While Rebecca was busy crafting her social media narrative, I was in my home office with a calculator and 12 years of receipts, building a case that numbers don't lie. The psychological evaluation results came back Monday morning. Dr. Martinez's report was crystal clear. Patient demonstrates full cognitive capacity, rational decision-making ability, and complete understanding of the consequences of his actions. No evidence of impaired judgment or undue influence. Bob Kleinman called with the news. You passed with flying colors, David. We can finalize the will changes whenever you're ready. Tuesday morning, I said, let's get this done. But first, I wanted to document exactly what 12 years of fatherhood had cost me. Not for the lawyers or the courts, for my own peace of mind. I spread everything out on my dining room table. Bank statements, receipts, invoices, medical records, school tuition payments, the paper trail of raising Rebecca Morrison, the adoption expenses from 2012, $52,000. That included lawyer fees, court costs, social worker evaluations, background checks, and mandatory parenting classes. I'd paid it gladly. Rebecca had been bouncing between foster homes for 2 years, and I'd wanted to give her stability. Private school tuition at Brentwood Academy, $45,000 per year for 12 years. Total, $540,000. Rebecca had begged to go there because all my friends go to private school. I'd taken out a second mortgage to make it happen. Her childhood asthma treatments, $89,000 over 8 years. Specialist appointments, emergency room visits, prescription medications, and a nebulizer machine that cost $3,200. Insurance covered most of it, but the copays and deductibles added up. Extracurricular activities, piano lessons, $150 per month for 6 years. Horseback riding lessons, $200 per month for 4 years. Summer camps, $2,500 per year, summer for 7 years. Private tennis coaching, $100 per session for 3 years. Total, $47,800. Clothes and personal items. Conservative estimate of $3,000 per year. For designer brands she insisted on having. Kate Spade purses, Nike shoes, name brand everything. Over 12 years, $36,000. The 2023 Honda Accord, $35,000, purchased for her 18th birthday. She'd wanted something safe and reliable for college. The car loan statements were still in my filing cabinet. College fund, $180,000, sitting untouched in a high-yield savings account. I'd been adding $1,000 per month since the adoption was finalized. Medical expenses during my cancer treatment that she'd complained about. $67,400 in out-of-pocket costs so far. The same amount I'd spent on her piano and writing lessons. I added it up 3 times to make sure my math was correct. Total investment in Rebecca Morrison over 12 years. $1,047,200. Over $1 million. Her financial contribution to the household during those 12 years, $0. Her contribution to my cancer care, $0. Her contribution to housework, yard maintenance, or family responsibilities, $0. But that wasn't the whole story. I pulled out my business records. Nashville Construction Company had been profitable every year until 2024. The cancer treatments forced me to step back from daily operations in May. Revenue dropped 30% in 6 months because I couldn't bid on new projects or supervise job sites. Lost income due to illness, approximately $180,000. Meanwhile, Rebecca's expenses continued unchanged. The car payment, insurance, gas money, clothes, her phone bill, groceries. She'd never once offered to get a part-time job to help with household expenses. When I'd suggested she might want to work at the local coffee shop for spending money, she'd looked at me like I'd suggested she join the circus. "Dad, I need to focus on my college applications," she'd said. "And besides, work would interfere with my volunteer schedule." Her volunteer schedule. 2 hours on Saturday mornings, which she'd started exactly 1 week after telling me to hurry up and die. I pulled up her social media posts from the past year. Starbucks coffee every morning, $6. Sushi lunches with friends, $25. Shopping trips to the mall, $100 to $200 per outing. Concert tickets, $150. Movie nights, $40. All funded by my business. all taken for granted. The bank statements told a story she never knew I was keeping track of. Every withdrawal, every purchase, every expense charged to the family account. The numbers told a story she never knew. November 18th, 2024. St. Matthew's Episcopal Church was packed with 134 people who'd come to say goodbye to David Morrison. I wasn't there, obviously, but I'd planned every detail of what would happen next. The funeral service was exactly what I'd requested in my pre-need arrangements. Simple, dignified. Pastor Williams spoke about love, forgiveness, and the importance of family. Rebecca sat in the front pew wearing black, dabbing her eyes with tissues, accepting condolences from a steady stream of mourners. "Your father was so proud of you," they told her. "He talked about you constantly. You were such a blessing to him during his illness," others said. Rebecca played the part perfectly. The grieving daughter who'd sacrificed everything to care for her dying father. The devoted child who'd been by his side until the end. Except she hadn't been there at the end. She'd been at a friend's birthday party when I died. Tyler had to call her 3 times before she answered. But the real show was scheduled for November 20th, 2 days after the funeral. That's when Bob Kleinman would read my will to the assembled family members. I'd specifically requested that all immediate family members be present for the reading. Not because Tennessee law required it didn't, but because some lessons need an audience. 52 relatives packed into Bob's conference room that Tuesday afternoon. The extended Morrison clan, siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents, and assorted family friends who'd been close enough to consider themselves part of the inner circle. Rebecca sat at the head of the table, right where I'd known she would. She'd positioned herself as the primary beneficiary, the one everyone would congratulate once the formalities were over. Tyler sat beside her, quiet and respectful. He'd driven up from Memphis with his mother for the funeral and stayed for the will reading. Good kid, always had been. Bob began with the standard legal language. Date of execution, mental competency statements, revocation of all previous wills. Standard boilerplate that no one pays attention to. Then he got to the specific bequests. To my son, Tyler Morrison, I leave the sum of $250,000 to be held in trust for his education and future endeavors, with the remainder available to him upon his 25th birthday. Tyler's eyes went wide. Under the original will, he would have received $200,000. I'd added an extra $50,000 as a reward for actually acting like family during my illness. A murmur went through the room. $250,000 was serious money for a 16-year-old kid. Rebecca smiled and squeezed Tyler's hand. "Dad always took care of family," she whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Bob continued reading. To my daughter, Rebecca Morrison. The room went quiet. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. The big reveal. The multi-million-dollar inheritance that would set Rebecca up for life. I leave the sum of $1. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Rebecca blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" Bob cleared his throat and repeated the line. To my daughter, Rebecca Morrison, I leave the sum of $1. $1? Rebecca's voice cracked. "That has to be a mistake. There's an accompanying note," Bob said gently. "The will states, this bequest reflects the value Rebecca has placed on our relationship, as demonstrated by her own words and actions during my final months." The color drained from Rebecca's face. Around the table, 52 family members sat frozen, trying to process what they'd just heard. Uncle Tom was the first to speak. "Bob, there has to be some kind of error. David's estate is worth over $2 million. Where does the rest go?" Bob flipped to the next page. The remainder of David Morrison's estate, totaling approximately $2,299,999, is bequeathed to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, specifically designated for pancreatic cancer research. Rebecca shot to her feet. "That's impossible. Dad would never. There has to be a mistake." "I'm afraid there's no mistake," Bob said calmly. "Your father made these changes in September, after a series of consultations. He was evaluated by an independent psychologist and found to be of sound mind and judgment." "September?" Rebecca's voice was getting higher. "Right after our therapy sessions?" The family members were starting to murmur among themselves. Confused whispers, shocked expressions, meaningful glances. "Rebecca," Aunt Linda said carefully, What happened in those therapy sessions? That's when Rebecca made her fatal mistake. Instead of staying quiet, instead of expressing confusion or grief, she got angry. "This is ridiculous," she shouted. "I spent months taking care of him. I put my entire life on hold. I visited him in the hospital." "Actually," Tyler said quietly, "you visited twice. I kept track." Rebecca spun toward him. "Stay out of this. This doesn't concern you." "Rebecca," Uncle Tom said, his voice taking on a warning tone, "maybe you should calm down." "Calm down? My father just gave away my inheritance to charity. Money that was supposed to take care of me. Money I earned by being his daughter. Earned. That word hung in the air like smoke. Cousin Sarah leaned forward. "What exactly do you think you earned, Rebecca?" "I sacrificed everything for him. I could have gone to college this fall, but I stayed home to help with his care. I gave up my future." "Your college fund is still sitting in the bank," Tyler said. "Dad never touched it. It's got $180,000 in it." Rebecca's face was getting red now. "That's not the point. The point is that Dad was being selfish with his medical treatments, and I was the one trying to be realistic about our situation." Brother Jake stood up slowly. "Rebecca, what exactly did you say to your father about his medical treatments?" And that's when Rebecca really lost it. "I told him the truth. I told him he was prolonging everyone's suffering by fighting a battle he couldn't win. I told him he was being cruel to himself and to me by spending a fortune on treatments that weren't going to save him anyway." The room went dead silent again. "I told him that if he really loved our family, he would think about what was best for everyone, not just himself." Grandmother Morrison gasped. "Rebecca, you didn't." "Yes, I did. And I was right. He spent $67,000 on treatments in his last 6 months. $67,000 that could have been used for something productive instead of just prolonging the inevitable." Uncle Tom stood up. "Get out." "What?" "You heard me. Get out of this office. Get out of this family meeting. Get out." "You can't kick me out. I'm his daughter." "No," Uncle Tom said, his voice like steel. "You're a stranger who lived in his house and spent his money." A daughter wouldn't have said those things to a dying man. Other family members were standing now. Aunt Linda was crying. Cousin Mike was shaking his head in disgust. "Maybe you should have thought about that at dinner," Uncle Tom added. Rebecca looked around the room desperately, searching for support. She found none. "This isn't over," she said to Bob. "I'm going to contest this will." "I'll prove he wasn't thinking clearly." Bob opened a thick folder. "Rebecca, your father anticipated that response. Here's the psychological evaluation from Dr. Martinez. Here are the recorded therapy sessions he requested from Dr. Williams. Here's a timeline of every conversation you had about inheritance during his illness, documented by 3 different witnesses." He slid a piece of paper across the table. "This is a donation receipt from St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. The money was transferred this morning. It's gone." Rebecca stared at the receipt. "In memory of a father's love," she read aloud, "in honor of children who deserve better." She looked up at the room full of family members, all staring at her with expressions ranging from disgust to pity. Then she ran. Rebecca hired a lawyer the next day. Cost her $15,000 from her college fund just to hear what Bob Kleinman had already told her. The will was ironclad. Dr. Martinez's psychological evaluation was bulletproof. The recorded therapy sessions were devastating. My mental competency was never in question. The case was dismissed in 3 weeks. St. Jude sent a formal acknowledgement letter to the family. The donation would fund a new research wing dedicated to pediatric pancreatic cancer. They wanted to name it after me, but I'd specified it should be called the Anonymous Father Fund. "In honor of fathers everywhere," the plaque would read, "who sacrifice everything for children who deserve better." The family split exactly like I'd predicted. 28 relatives supported the lesson I'd taught. They understood that respect isn't inherited, it's earned. 14 thought I'd been too harsh. 10 stayed neutral, unwilling to pick sides in a family war. Tyler used his $250,000 wisely. He finished high school, went to college, and started a nonprofit organization helping foster kids transition to independence. Every year on my death anniversary, he visits that research wing at St. Jude. Rebecca moved into a studio apartment across town, got a job at Target making $12 an hour, started learning what the rest of the world already knew. Money doesn't grow on trees, and respect can't be demanded. She tried reaching out to family members for financial help. Most didn't return her calls. Uncle Tom's response was typical. Maybe if you apologize to David's memory first. Write a letter to Saint. Jude explaining what you learned, then we'll talk. She never wrote the letter. The last I heard, through Tyler, who still talks to our extended family, Rebecca was sharing that studio apartment with 2 roommates and taking night classes at community college, learning how to budget, how to work, how to live like everyone else. Some lessons cost exactly what they're worth. The research wing opened 18 months after my death. Tyler sent me a photo, somehow. Maybe that's not how death works, but I like to think I saw it. Children with a fighting chance. Kids who wanted to live, worth every penny.